Okay, yes. Yeah, we need to collaborate now. We can improve our we can improve our we can improve our we can improve our yeah, I'm agree with you. Yeah, I'm agree with you. Yeah, I'm agree with you. Yeah, what's up, man? Yeah, what's up, hello, brother. Very, very nice, very nice, representation of you. And one can use it to collaborate. One can communicate, collaborate. I'm from Indonesia. I'm from Indonesia. I have no class. My time was over. And I have no class. Okay, you have I can listen to you. This is communication. I need getting you after this. I will try to. Who knows? We can collaborate.
Because we are expanding Indonesia.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah, one of our expertise is we are expert for Web3 also. We have for energy marketplace also. I think yeah. Okay, brother. Thanks for the time. Yeah. Hope
Thank you.
can we can Thank you.
head of Southeast Asia and Tokyo, head of Southeast Asia and Tokyo, Director Dubai, Lizu, COO at Tomo, Lizu, COO at Tomo, Jen Guling, CEO and founder at GovTech. All right, Nisha. All right, thank you. Okay, right. So thank you to the audience for sparing time, your time today to hear what our esteemed panelists is going to share with us the latest in cybersecurity and the custody of funds. Right. So to my left we have just Vicky, who's the Zolio head of Asia. We have also next to him, Marui Philip, who is a consensus director, and Keith, right, who is a co-host COO, and also Julie, founder and CEO of Blockhack. And I'm Jacob, and I'm the podcast host of Ice Cream Media and also this Cyber Panel. So to kick off, before we start, I just want to say, have a very simple structure for the panel discussion today. So we will start with setting the context of what we mean by custody of funds in blockchain. Then we talk about some cybersecurity incidents, and follow up by some of the aspects learned from some of the incidents, and then what are the tips of the users and the developers, and what are the solutions, and also looking forward to even what is happening with FPS and stuff like that. What is the landscape like? So to start off, if I may just ask a very quick sort of action of our panelists. Just in sort of 30 seconds like action. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, so what we did is and now so Joseph is actually a security firm as well as a private equity firm. So we have to support secure build as well as invest in crypto projects. So we have a team of top tier security auditors to do QA, to do backend smart contract auditing, pen testing, etc. And we also do advisory on economics, engineering, and investments. So if any case that you guys would like to speak to get to know more about security or about investment wise, in any ecosystem, be it like Move or be it like Golang or Rust, we do support all of it as well. So happy to chat with anyone that's interested too. Yeah, just as an expert, right? Nice to meet you. It was more than 30 seconds. My name is Marwan. I am with Consensus. What I spend my time on is essentially connecting with the builders projects in the DeFi space, wallet space, some tooling as well for like infrastructure and whatnot. Consensus, for you who may not know it, is a company that does a few things in the Web3 space. So we have, for example, I'll summarize it into three areas, right? So there is the user focus with the MetaMask wallet. So that's focusing on the retail users, but also on the institutional users with some of our partners. And we also focus on the infrastructure side with providing like RPC infrastructure as well as smart contracts, auditing and security tools. And then also we are looking at scalability areas by providing ICK technology. So a bunch of things. For me, I just speak to builders and see how we can help them with all the knowledge. Right, thank you, Marie. Lots of stuff as well. Lots of stuff going on at Kobo too. Hi, great to see everyone here. I'm Lily from Kobo. Kobo is the largest, one of the largest custodian capital institution providers in Chile. At Kobo, we provide a portfolio custodian solutions for clients' different needs. We provide a centralized custody, which we partner up with national institutions. And we also provide an MPC to manage the custody. We which provide smart contract-based data custody. We also have the product called Superloop that is an off-exchange clearance and settlement network that help hedge fund teams to trade without the need to pre-fund exchanges. Thank you, Lily and Julie.
Hi everyone, great to be here. My name is Julie, CEO of Rockex. So Rockex is a institutional staking and data provider. So we help business and institutions to number one interact with blockchain through access nodes. So they don't have to build it themselves, they don't have to maintain it, and at the same time we help them to do self-custody staking. So while us safeguarding all the blockchains, we generate fixed income to our customers while all the funds stays in their own custody or wallet of choice. Yeah, and lastly, we're using this technology to manage our validators in order to make it secure. So, in this case, wallets, custodies, exchanges are actually our customers.
Right. So thank you, panelists, for your self-introduction. And before I forget, if any of you in the audience who would like, a question for our panelists, we will have the last 5 10 minutes of the panel discussion. So if you raise your hand, we'll put you the mic, and you can pose a question to the panelists. Yeah. So to start off, so cybersecurity and the custody of funds in blockchain. So let's talk about what we mean by custody of funds in blockchain, right? And many people have many ideas, right? It's about Web3, it's about DeFi, it's about CeFi, it's about GameFi, it's about metaverse. So there's a lot of different angles that you can tackle that. So if I may just start with you, Tristan. So what do we mean by custody of funds?
I'm a bit more experienced in the security field, but I think definitely custody, when we talk about custody in the Web3 industry, is definitely different from traditional custody. Because I believe traditional one is also physical stocks, as well as maybe like the bot certificates, but going with Web3, the decentralization and the transfer system, custody is so much different, and so it's much more versatile here as well. So clients, I believe they can actually get exposed to more safe custody, more secure as well through like different platforms such as Google and yeah. So that's maybe Maryland
I'll touch quickly on this because Consensus is very invested in education around self-custody. Right? So the main reason why we built Web3 is really to allow individuals to be owners of their assets by using this technology blockchain. Now, this is, to be very transparent, is not easy or given for many people. Like the user experience is not ideal, it's a bit hard. I mean, good luck getting your non-technical person to go and get assets. So that's where there was a lot of providers that give you a centralized asset. So they will do it on your behalf. And that's where some problems do show up. Some of them may be not good actors and whatnot. For us, we are really trying to do two things. First of all, keep educating on why it's important to do self-custody. We just launched a couple of weeks back a MetaMask Learn platform. It's a very nice website, very easy to understand. It has some courses in it that I would really recommend to non-crypto. You can share it with your friends and they can understand a little bit why it's custody, what is it like, how do you get there, in very simple terms. So the education is one aspect you see more of this campaign through social media example. The second part is, of course, building the tooling to make such a thing, which is self-custody, doable, easy. So a lot of work has been done on the MetaMask side, and allowing the users to have a foolproof tool to do self-custody. Until then, there's of course another requirement for central custodians to help the users who don't want to deal with that struggle. And perhaps to that I will call.
Yeah. So maybe if you could add on, Marvin's point about self-custody and centralized exchange, and also of course wallets, which Google is very strong.
Custody is usually referred to as the institution's wallet for safekeeping their digital assets. So it also lays the foundation for other business to flourish, such as payment services, banking services, private brokerage. So it's well regarded as the gateway for institutions' adoption of digital assets. Whether it's self-custody, centralized custody, or co-managed custody, and receiver. And cybersecurity is
Cek
a
satu.
very important part
Halo,
of it, but custody is more than
halo.
cybersecurity. Cybersecurity causes protection or computer.
Di depan, dekat tas itu saya. Nggak tahu, padahal tahu orang foto dia nggak ada.
Yeah, and really, those cyber are the biggest cybersecurity incidents.
I'm not an expert in cybersecurity, but as a custodian, we watch the market data closely. So 2022 is definitely the DeFi hackers' best performance year. So in 2022, you see DeFi incidents like more than 300 of them, and the loss of more than 4 billion US dollars. And at the same time, if we compare to CFI incidents, the volume came down from 6 billion loss in 2021 to just 800 million loss last year. 800 million is not a small number, but compared to the loss in DeFi protocols, the loss in DeFi protocols is much more. So it impacts the booming of DeFi applications at the same time. It also alerts us like the interaction with more blockchain protocols brings us more risks to assets. So there is a very interesting slogan for Web3 in 2022. They said, if, Web2 take your data and the Web3 take your assets. That's what happened in 2020. So even especially for big institutions, 2022 is a big year because we came into one the space in 2021 and they were formal, but they became the top 15 in 2022. So
Kok
we
suaranya
work a
tidak
lot
kedengaran
with
ya?
the
Kedengaran sebenarnya tidak kedengaran
identified
suaranya.
players. So we interact with them daily and also help them with identifying their vulnerabilities and address system impacts. And we do think with the booming of on-chain applications, um, these projects do need to pick their custodian wisely so they can rely on custodians' expertise to audit smart contracts on chain. And also, if they are using a centralized custody, they will also need to design their workflow wisely to make sure external and internal risks. Yes, these are obviously some of the lessons that we have learned, and we'll go deeper into some of these in the next topic. But if I may come to you, Maureen. So, in terms of cybersecurity incidents, Sulin talked about the DAO incidents in 2016. Lily talked about DeFi, dominating the cybersecurity incident landscape in 2022. But of course, we also hear about Axie Infinity, and which is kind of like GameFi, but some would say it's a cross chain sort of hack. So tell us your perspective about cybersecurity landscape.
Sure. So I think to really appreciate the importance of cybersecurity, you have to look at what are the risk buckets in the space that we're working in. And without going too much details, I'll probably speak about two areas. The first one is essentially very classic cybersecurity, where because of self-custody, because you can put the power into the hands of one key, essentially, the most vulnerable attack vector is still the human factor, right? So you will hear about a lot of incidents that happened recently, but it's mostly social engineering, right? So take over the Twitter, take over their, I think, Telegram. Bill Murray got hacked for his NFT collection and he just sold such a guy on TV, but still, you can engineer it. In my Instagram today, I have two of my good friends who are hacked there by crypto group, and I keep receiving messages. And I try to look at these messages and analyze. It's a lot of social engineering. Like they use the verbiage of your connections, they use the same language, and you can really put your guards down and if you're not careful. So these are still probably the same problems that Web2 have to deal with, right? So the standard stuff. The other angle of it is the fact that Web3 and blockchain is such a still evolving, experimenting, discovering new things, that many of these solutions that we go and deploy today, they haven't been tested hard enough by real life. I mean, I'm sure the developers are testing in many companies providing smart contract audit, etc., etc. But if you look, for example, at some bridge hacks and whatever happens with Axie as an example, that's really just more of a scenario, let's say, that the bridge designer did not think about. And because Web3 is mostly open source and clear, you can put it there, people can look at it. And then if you get somebody looking at your invention from a different perspective of how do I exploit it, there will be scenarios that have not been thought through. And the good thing is that as hacks happen, silver lining is that as hacks happen, those get plugged, and we learn from it and we improve. And then the hackers also keep improving. But ultimately, yes, I mean, there is the human factor, there is the technology itself. Most of the apps we interact with today is a Web 2, maybe like an interface with a smart contract in the back. So it's very important for us to go and look at, break down the risk on all of these parts, and each one of them, see what are the learned lessons and what we can work on.
Right, yeah. So just that you've got something to add on that.
I definitely agree with everyone because I think the main reason why I joined the cybersecurity industry was because I was personally hacked as well on Telegram. So like I think social engineering hacks are on the rise. So I mean I just opened like a zip file and then my MetaMask files were actually automatically extracted of my knowledge. So it was pretty bad. And yeah, so I think that's why cybersecurity is so important because we always have to, fight against all these exploits, and we never know when these exploits can happen. Because as technology improves, with the presence of AI, with ChatGPT, so we are always hackers will always try to improve their ways of trying to exploit projects' funds, users' funds. Even like in 2022, right, we see a huge rise in exploits. So this is in the case similar trend when there's a bear market, there's an increase in exports. And not only in 2022, like the trend even continues towards this year as well. In February, we see like big exploits like cow swap being exploited, like the one that was being exploited, and like all these are newer scams, for example, like phishing scams, even cow swap is like through an exploit of the settlement contract, and so like projects they always have to have mechanisms in place to always be able to get efficiently and effectively to hacks. So like they should have like a smoke test. So for example, if they should do like a trial smoke test. So if they were to get spotted right, or they would react.
So it's a bit like a sort of self-auditing.
Yeah, right. So they should, yeah, have like a protocol should always be ready in terms of handle these attacks, have a good response system in place, and also have like third-party auditors like so can come in to actually have to give advice on how do we improve the code and how do we improve like the response system. But that's the case of that attack.
Okay, so that brings us, again, very nice to the next topic, which is lessons learned, right? So you talked about doing some self-audits and third-party sort of review of code. Marwin, what do you think are the lessons that you learned from all these hacks? Because as Tristan is saying, we are still seeing them. Never ends.
I don't know. I think what we at Consensus at least are still very much focused on is really the self-custody movement. And so things like what happens with centralized hacks and whatnot is just a validation that you should do more self-custody. But then it's not so easy. We have to teach people what are the tools, what are the things that they can use, what are the best practices. So yeah, there is not one lesson. It's more of like it makes us aware of what are the things that we still need to improve in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, as you were saying, that the Web3 space is still very new, isn't it? So in terms of like the best standards when it comes to code audit or code reviews and software development cycle, I guess there's still quite a big moving sort of
Yes, still a lot of things to build. Like we do have, for example, an audit team that is very expert. They will look at the smart contract and that they will do their work and whatnot. But it's still such a manual work. It takes time and it's costly. And so, as you want projects to develop faster and have like continuous releases, an area that is interesting is, for example, tooling that you can integrate to your DevOps process to be able to do constant review as you're writing code and publishing code. From a user perspective, like if you look at the wallet space, there will always be, you know, transactions that you didn't approve or mistakes that are happening. So we're working with a few projects that are trying to look at that and say, well, what can we build? So interesting projects will do, for example, a database of intelligence that tells you that, hey, this smart contract you interacted with is flag that is a bit risky. So giving that information to the user will allow them to maybe take the precautions. Some other solutions are leveraging like front running and MVPs to go and stop the transaction that is already submitted and go essentially and retrieve the funds before they get sent to the attacker wallet. Some other projects focus on the post fraud, right? So okay, the funds are stolen. What do we do about it? How do we retrieve them? So there's multiple dimensions to the problem, and all of them are actually kind of improving. It's going to take time, but hopefully in a short enough period, we will all meet at this intersection and say we have strengthened all the angles, and then the hackers will find something else.
Yes, yeah, I know. Well, Bitcoin is was sort of came into the scene in 2008, so it's a very, very new field, the whole blockchain. So maybe, so what lessons can we take from all these cybersecurity incidents that never seem to slow down or go away?
If safeguarding of digital assets has to be solved soon. Otherwise, we will not be able to see the movement of mass adoption of digital assets. And the evolution of Web3 will just remain in a very exclusive community. It will not be a mass adoption at all. And I think from the incident, we also see people's curiosity. We see that custodian wallets are not a safe box anymore. interaction and participation is still the core value of blockchain. So knowing that my assets might be hacked, but you still see so many active participation interaction with on-chain applications, that raises some new challenges for students like us. It became our mission now because you see the movement at the user side, technology side, and application side. At the user side, you see not only the rapid growth of number of users, also see the type of users evolving from programmers, crypto to large institutions. And you also see booming of crypto native organizations like DAOs and crypto funds. They have definitely they have unique needs to interact with on-chain protocols. On the technology side, from Bitcoin 2009 to the introduction of smart contract in 2015 to some alternative smart contract-based blockchains, you see more and more layer ones, application-specific blockchain, and even modular blockchains with layered robots. And the multi-chain, multi-layer world definitely give rise to user asset application fragmentation. And on application side, before 2020, crypto exchange and some payment services are main applications. But since then, smart contract fuel the booming of new applications. Now you see DeFi, DAO, NFT, each of them became a multi-billion-dollar business. So this trend, movement in users, technology, and application side all calls for custodians' awareness to accommodate for such needs. State box is no longer an option for custodians.
Yeah, I like your point about there's no adoption without security, right? So we need to get this right to prioritize the safeguarding of our clients' assets and our own assets. Julings, your point, your perspective on the lessons that we can take from cybersecurity incidents.
I mean, for everyone who's here today, I think either we are holding crypto assets or we're thinking of getting into crypto assets, right? So the first question to ask is, what kind of way is most suitable for me to store my crypto assets securely? So, if you're not super tech savvy, probably going into a licensed custodial makes more sense. Yeah. So this is the part where you do need to think about the counterparty risk, whether it's licensed, whether they have very good back-end processes, whether some large institutions are using it. Think about it, it's like you're not putting your seed dollars into an unlicensed bank, right? So that's kind of the same thinking process here. While during our chat with a lot of large financial institutions, a lot of them are also building their own custodies. Yeah, because that is their way of learning the whole process and also to prevent a lot of cybersecurity incidents. Yeah, then the second part is that, okay, if you think, cool, I think I'm tech savvy, I want to do all the stuff myself, a self-custodial wallet definitely works the best for you. Yeah, but of course, do spend some time think about how do you keep your private keys. Yeah, because that's something that you never want to share with others and you don't want it lost. Yeah, if you lose it, you can never retrieve it. Yeah, so that's the first part. You need to think about how to choose the way to store your assets. Then the second part is actually where most of the instances happens, is once you have your assets stored, and you start to look for yield opportunity. So that's the part it gets trickier. Yeah. So most of the time, when we're talking about yield, actually yield comes either from trading profit or lending interest, right? Both of them requires you to move your assets to another party. So it's lent out or it's being traded. Yeah, but this is the part where whether it's DeFi or it's CeFi, you need to understand how exactly they're using your money. Yeah, if it's a DeFi protocol that actually they have a backdoor or they're actually not being lent out by its own like Ponzi, you have to be alert. do your own research on this part. Yeah. And actually, a lot of wallets and custodies allows you to trading and lending through it. I believe Kobo has super loop, so you can trade around it. A lot of wallets allows you to connect to DeFi protocols for lending, etc. For us, there's another safer yield opportunity, which is self-custodial validation staking. So this means that you're actually participating in a blockchain's validators. So the blockchain itself rewards you. So the yield is actually a block reward rather than it's being traded or lended out. Right? One problem we see or one challenge we see in this whole market right now, given what has happening on Kraken. So SEC is actually saying that, right? When people say staking, you actually don't know whether this has, well, how exactly your funds are used. Is it being traded or is it being lent or is it actually being staked on the validator? Yeah. So this is the part. If you're using service, ask them what exactly your funds are being used and assess for risks accordingly.
Right, so thank you, Julie. Yeah, so Julie just point out a few different solutions and some tips for the users to be aware of. So maybe if I may get your views, what are your advice or to the users? Some of the tips, when they think about how to customize their funds. What would be some of the tips you provide?
Because we serve institution most, so my advice would be to institutions. I think there are two considerations that a project team should have when they pick their custodians. One is how could the solution help me to mitigate external and internal risk? Because when it's a team involved um, in blockchain interaction, you are facing internal risks as well. And the other question to ask is whether the solution can help me to have both accessibility and security of my interaction with blockchain applications and other applications. So, I would be glad to introduce both of them because for centralized CFI projects, if they have a need to be compliant with law, our centralized custody solution can help them with audits, with compliant with regulations in multiple jurisdictions. And if it's a team at the frontier to deal with the most advanced DeFi technologies, then I would suggest you can use our smart contract-based custody, which is programmable and also self-custody. And if for a team that cares about control of private key themselves, then we also have co-managed PC solution. So, and if you are trading team looking to get built from both CX and DEX, then we have a super loop for you to mitigate exchanges counterpartiness. And we also have others, our smart contract-based custody, to help you to get built from the protocols more safely.
Right, so thank you, Lily. You talked about internal risk, and which is also the point that Maureen brought up about insider threat, isn't it? So what to Maureen, your advice to users, whether it's institutions or consumers, what should they be think about when they choose their custody solutions?
Um, I think the most important part is we need to understand each use case has different requirements. And so, who are you? What are you trying to do? Sometimes you want to maximize protection against internal risk because you have a group of people who can actually perhaps collude to use your funds. Sometimes you want to protect against external risk because you have handling large amounts of assets and you might be a target to either governmental or hackers and whatnot. Sometimes actually you want to create efficiency in terms of improving transactions and getting things done because you are, doing very good transactions and so on. Sometimes you're just buying to hold and you're going to forget about your BTC for 10 years. And so each use case is a bit different. And each one has different risk profile. Each one you will have to go and map it to a particular tooling and particular approach to how you do the custody. And I wouldn't be surprised if you would use a combination of three or five, right? The best rule is always never put your eggs in the same basket, right? So yeah, there is no straight answer, but think about it from a use case point of view. What am I trying to achieve? What are the things I want to maximize for? And then combine the available tooling to cover yourself.
Put all your eggs in one basket. Very sound advice. Tristan, you talked about phishing earlier, so what are your advice to users?
I mean, apart from safeguarding funds in custodians, right? So I mean, if users they want to like further invest their funds, in like protocols, sometimes like as a user, right, you see like a protocols that promise like a 1,000% APY or like a yield farming, like gen yield farming, right? So I mean, some people they are tempted to put their funds inside, which has the potential of like getting stolen or getting corrupted, right? So I think it's very important that users actually do their own research and due diligence of like these protocols, whether they are backed by a third-party auditor or whether they are transparent in terms of their team information, team background, and how are they going to like generate these sustainable APIs? How are these like APIs sustainable? And how are the revenue models being projected and created? Yeah, so I think it's very important that users are actually educated on transparency and educated on like, the information current scams of them, the current phishing scams, the current smart contract scams, and how they are implemented.
Yeah, I think sometimes when it's too good to be true, it's actually too good to be true, right? I'm conscious of the time. We have 5 minutes left. So I just want to turn to the audience. If the audience has any questions, if you want to raise your hand. Please at the mic, the gentleman at the back who has a question. If you could just do a brief intro of yourself as well, that would be great. And whether you're directing your question to the whole panel or no sound.
Hello. Cool, thanks for the presentation. My name is Jeffrey. I lead a developer training program called Rare Skills. We mostly focus on stability, but you mentioned Rust. Just this questions for you. What kind of security research do you see being done in that area? The material out there is not as widely available as for stuff that's related to the EVM. So, what kind of security research areas are getting a lot of attention right now? Where do you see a lot of the development investment going?
All right. Okay. So, where are different parties are investing from a cybersecurity point of view? What areas or within the infrastructure is that what you mean?
Oh, sorry, I meant specifically for Rust because that was something.
For Rust. Oh, for Rust. Sorry. Anyone who is familiar with Rust?
I think for my end, I think for my end, I think we are more focused on move. So on move side, we if you know move the suite and EtherPOS. So there's a lot of security infra. I'm not a technical person, but there's a lot of security infra improvements in the suite ecosystem. So I think one case is that we are using like a machine learning AI in terms of how we were to like secure and audit move projects. So AI actually uses like past historical events, exploits from like the Rust and other chains, and then we actually implement it into our Move ecosystem, into our Move audits as well. And yeah, so we identify characteristics of like basic exploits and technical exploits, and then we actually build it into our audit reports when we are doing audits for like Move projects.
Does that answer your question, Jeffrey?
It's not related.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. We'll talk
Slightly,
about it.
slightly, all right.
I'll get back to the Rust part. Yeah.
Anyone else want to? Okay. Do we have any more questions from the audience? No. Okay. So right. So let's just wrap up the panel. 2 minutes, right? So very nice. So what do you think? Looking forward, what is the cybersecurity landscape going to be looking like for the custody of funds? So we start with. I think Tristan is quite eager. Okay. Are we? You can start.
No, for me, it's really, I'm seeing multiple threads of vendors optimizing for particular areas of cybersecurity in Web3. The hope is that perhaps there is a one integrated solution or approach that you can just use as a project. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. So until then, we just have to keep encouraging these individual projects to optimize for their own area. And then, if you are project building as well, think about how you can compose these different things to optimize your own security, DevSecOps process, but also to maybe build an easier platform for other projects to use. Again, we're still a bit early days to have that full suite of coverage.
Still a lot of work to be done, right? And maybe your thoughts for what the coming years will look like in the midst of all this critical winter conversation.
The 2022 as the year for big institutions to lose money, the market and the players like us now have better awareness of what big institutions need. So it's a year of builders to build a more accessible and secure wallet infrastructure for institutions. So it's our mission to develop it.
All right, okay. And today,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see how mass adoption could happen with a more secure way for average people to store their assets. So if there could be some kind of like a authentication method or there could be some social recovery method, I don't think we should expect everyone to keep their private keys themselves, unless they have a certain level of technical know-how. So that will, of course, also spark a lot of innovations, right? How to do custody, securely for the mass market.
thank you, Julie, and Tristan, last words.
And I just want to add, like, blockchain is a very nascent industry, so everything is evolving and technology is evolving. So it will always be a constant fight between like hackers, exploiters, and towards like the security safeguard it. So I think further down the road we'll see like eventually this fight hopefully answered.
Yeah, it's still going to be a cat and mouse game for a while to come. So yes, so on that note, so thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you very much. Dive into anecdotes, let's have an imagination of what life will be like in 30 years. So at that time, I'm almost 17 years old. I'm feeling lonely, sitting at home, somewhere food. I'm logging my TID, wandering around, find a restaurant, order delivery food, pay some tokens, and the restaurant at the same time will receive a visit, which represents its popularity. I think they will receive more if I give them a review after I die. After the dinner, I don't feel well. I call my doctor and say, hey, remind me again how do I book an appointment in the metaverse for doctor. She reminded me, and after the call hang up, she also reminded me, saying, hey, mom, you know what? Togo, I'll share your medical records, and then you can get a discount in the treatment fee. So that's my imagination of how life will be like in 30 years.
It's fully digital, immersive in metaverse. And also, what we're talking about here is the technology being supporting that future. And the technology we're talking about is different. It's not just the blockchain technology. We're in this industry, sometimes we're feeling very narrow-minded, like everything is about crypto, everything is about blockchain technology, but it's not. We are in the age where technology is exploding. We're talking about artificial intelligence. ChatGPT is being super popular these days. We're also like people forgot about wearables, like the goggles. Things are not taking the heat of the media these days. But also computing, like edge computing, 5G, 6G, but 30 years after, I'm thinking about 10G, maybe it's not too bad. And then that's the things that we're most familiar with, which is blockchain technology. We are distributing a distributed technology ledger book, and we have decentralized social media, we have decentralized network. And what does it mean? Being supported by all these technologies, it means we have owned data, like personally owned data. And the data can be your personal data, can be your medical record, it can be a tweet, an email, an NFT, a piece of your security, a piece of your property, a piece of your Louis Vuitton bag. And also, this owned, like being certified in digital goods means you can trade it. When you can trade it, it means it would have a value when there is demand. And eventually, we're experiencing an age where there will be borderless flow of info, borderless flow of data, and plus with fractional transactions. So it's not going to be a sale of property as in itself. It's not going to be like, oh, this is something that I set as a whole, but it will be fractionalized as 1% or 8 digits after the dot. What I'm describing here is you can call it metaverse age, you can call it Web3 age. I think I'm giving it a name. It's probably not original. It's called Digital Economy 2.0. When your daily life is fully intertwined with the financial markets. We're entering an age when, so far we call it like borderless flow of information. Eventually will come to be the borderless flow of value. So, like as I described at the very beginning, you order food, you visit the doctors, that's financial happening every second, every piece of information. That was my dream 7 years ago when I joined this industry. Very beautiful, brighter future. And after that, this is what happened in 2022. The reality taught me a very harsh lesson. Each logo above on this slide contributes great story resource for Netflix show. And I have advice for Netflix. Take your time of developing these stories because people who are interested in these stories may not be able to afford Netflix subscription anytime soon. So we are witnessing last year 50 billion valuation. This is incomplete calculation, by the way. Valuation of companies filed bankruptcy, and we're witnessing zero point 0.7 trillion market value being wiped out by Terra Luna alone over around 1 week time, if we still remember. So these are the things that happened in 2022. But if we zoom out, uh, cryptocurrency since the birth of Bitcoin, it has been 14 years. 14 years, what did we do? This is just some numbers that I can share. We have 22,000 type of tokens. They've been listed in centralized exchanges and not, but they exist. We have 540 centralized exchanges plus decentralized exchanges. And in spot market, we are witnessing, this is the latest number, around 60 billion daily trading volume on spot market alone. And the futures market is probably going to equal the same amount of this. Well, options market is usually not that much, 2% of it. But looking at the numbers, no comparison seems to be, okay, fairly impressive, 14 years of development, like, what else? If we put them in a benchmark of the traditional equity markets, stock markets. So far, around more or less 70,000 listed companies. Globally, 140 stock exchanges, and the trading volume is around 550 million daily. So the easy math here is, at this moment in the crypto space, there is definitely an oversupply of exchanges with not matching amount of trading volumes. We have another comparison. This is a comparison. Oh, having it there. So this is a comparison about the adoption. People are talking about the adoption. When is the mass adoption coming? And my previous panel speakers are also anticipating mass adoption. So I'm choosing a field which is game. It's supposed to be the easiest to adopt, right? People are interested in games. So the most popular crypto game, Axie Infinity, everyone should have heard of this. The user, the player of Axie Infinity is about 0.8% of the players of Roblox, which is a very popular game nowadays. So this is the adoption that we're talking about. After 14 years of forensic development, we're having conferences and meetings talking about this technology, talking about adoption all the time, and this is what we achieve. And in terms of ownership, crypto ownership, there is around 4.2% of world population owning crypto at this moment, and it's after the massive adoption increased to 2% back in 2022. So that's one. Why? Let me slow down, being very aggressive. Why is this happening? So looking back, maybe we can borrow some brilliant guys' idea from Ray Dalio, who is explaining that there are both a financial economy and there is a real economy. So they're related, but they're different. Each has its own supply and demand factors that drive it. In the real economy, supply and demand are driven by the amount of goods and services produced and the number of buyers who want. So if we put this financial economy and real economy into what we're experiencing here in a crypto space, the goods and services, namely the game, people who want to buy it are minimal. People who are playing in Axie Infinity, if you ask most of them, they're not because this game is brilliant. It's because the reward that you can gain from this game. So what we're experiencing here is that financial economy is blowing, and the real economy generated from the crypto space is minimal or negligible. However, don't despair, because crypto itself is supposed to be finance native. Since the born of crypto, it is about finance. Since the born of Bitcoin is supposed to be a peer-to-peer payment token. So it is supposed to be in this way. But it's overhyped because the nature of it, there's money pumping in. But if Dalio is right, the financial economy is going to come and contribute to the real economy eventually, because money will flow in, helping the technology development, and eventually go and infiltrate into the real economy, and then achieve what we imagined 30 years afterwards. So when the internet was born, back in 1983, when I was not born yet, it took the whole financial system 13 years to achieve the dot-com bubble burst. 17 years. So dot-com bubble burst after the internet was born. And we have experienced 14 years since the Bitcoin is born, and a very, very disappointing year of 2022. So I hope this is something that we're finding similarity. And the dot-com bubble burst
if people who are experiencing that will remember, it was due to the media frenzy, the overvaluation, abundance that we see. Sounds familiar about what we're experiencing today. So back to the topic, what we're discussing is what are the opportunities for exchanges. I have 2 points to share here, and it's not only being relevant to exchanges. First, the thing is, we need to make the financial economy healthier. We need to stop the blow of the financial economy even further, because the real economy is already quite minimal compared to that. And secondly, we need to facilitate the value to flow from the financial economy to the real economy. Not just the responsibility of exchanges, it's probably going to be the responsibility of every player in this industry. And how can we make the financial economy healthy? The reason of all these companies collapsed that I was mentioning before was due to not only just over-financed ecosystem, like issuing token, lending and borrowing, staking, like inflate the whole space, but also because there is not appropriate market structure, risk management, regulations, third-party monitoring. Many things that we can think of. So the solution we're talking about first is about market specialization. This was crypto exchanges landscape before. Well, still. So you run a crypto exchange, you run a launchpad to support new tokens listing. You have lending and borrowing business. You have trading business, of course, that support. You have a wallet, NFT staking, asset management, custody, DeFi, everything at once. Recently, even CC said, oh, it's a great idea. Somebody please do it because we can't do everything. So what we are experiencing here is that many people can understand Chinese. There is an old saying in first line of Romance of Three Kingdoms, 天下大势,分久必合,合久必分, which means the world's generous situation matches the long dividing and divides the long matching. So we just said we have an oversupply of exchanges. It's going to merge, some will be outdated, and there will be conglomerates. But this style is hard to scale, if you think about it. Like, we can't have several, 3 or 4 huge superpower exchanges. It's hard to scale. You can't penetrate the market. You can't help with adoption. You're only a scratch on the surface of the 4.2% of the population in the world. It adds complexity to the compliance. So the compliance is going to say, oh, you're running exchange business, you're running a custody business, you're running a financial service businesses because you have lending and borrowing, and also it hinders healthy competition. So for exchanges, we're proposing like the opportunity is pragmatic market segregation and specialization. Before me, there was a panel talking about custody and security. And we're very like to hear the similar ideas that, oh, users are getting their fund in a custody, in the self-custody wallet. And what afterwards? What if they want yield? They want to trade, they want staking in DeFi. So they need to move the fund out. What if you don't? You don't need to move funds out. You can conduct all these things. So there is a layer, service layer, it's all here. There's a service layer, there's custodians, brokers, prime brokers, asset managers, self-custody. That's the service layer that users are interacting directly to keep the security and keep the ownership of their token. And there is a liquidity layer, which is centralized exchanges or decentralized exchanges, depending which is your requirement. If you want deeper liquidity, you go to centralized exchanges. If you just want new token, you go to decentralized exchanges. If you want DeFi, that's another story that we can take. And underneath, there is an infrastructure layer, which a lot of us in this industry are building, like layer 2, layer 0, layer 3, and bridges, cross-chain protocols, interoperability is building. There are blockchains, of course. So when users are interacting, it's like the internet. They don't need to go to the internet and write code about things themselves because there's a service layer, people can interact. And most importantly, what we are like advocating is off-exchange settlement. So this is something that will solve the problem that FTX is creating, and there will be user swap here and there. So yeah, this is like market segregation and specialization. I think my previous panel would also love to hear about this idea because being there at the first contact point is users' money. And of course, as financial market matures, there will be, as cryptocurrency exchanges as us, which is specialized in options trading, would advocate for more advanced and sophisticated risk management trading instruments, which would be like crypto options trading. And now we only have Bitcoin and Ethereum dominant as the crypto options trading, and altcoins will gradually be picked up. So until now, you were probably thinking, oh, this lady is feeling agnostic about traditional finance after a one disappointed year of development of this industry. She's replicating what's existed for the past 50 years that are developed in traditional market. First, on my defense, it developed into this structure for a reason. And secondly, in the crypto blockchain space, there is specialty and uniqueness, which is about Web3, which comes back to what my point was. If you imagine like Google, Facebook, Uber, or this type of businesses as Web2, and what we described originally, including OpenSea as Web3, exchanges should play as a character, we can call it hybrid or Web 2.5, because where is it? Here. So centralized exchanges or decentralized exchanges are interacting with the infrastructure layer immediately, like directly. So there is possibility for the exchanges to provide services to the Web3 space and build portals to DeFi or DAO and advocate for everything that is growing from there. And you aggregate users integration, creating portals to the Web3, and that's where you also can interact with the future economy, which is Web3 or digital economy 2.0, that we just gave the name to. So coming back to my point, there are 2 pointers that we can give. Opportunities for exchanges. First, to make the financial economy healthier by adopting market specialization. And second, to facilitate the value to flow from financial economy to the real economy by encouraging money and user adoption to the Web3 space through the exchanges as a portal. If you can think of other portals, welcome, but exchanges so far is still one of the most interactive places in the crypto space. Thank you. That's my speech. That's the time, right? Perfect.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Toya Zaga of CMO of BIT. I would also like to say that we are here for our person situation, if that's okay. And we want now next to the final speaker before we go to a break. Let's welcome the people of us, Tobias Powell, Principal and Blockchain Founders Fund, with the topic Web3 Startup Strategies. Round of applause for Tobias.
Joining me today. It's always a challenge being
Thank you.